I'm so sorry. Y'all are gonna be upset. Hello my bookworms, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sydney. In today's video, we are going over all the books that were not it. The books that I either DNF'd, books that I did not like, or books that were just straight disappointing to me of all the books that I read in 2021. So hey, what's up? How are you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. This video, little nervous about it. I don't think I've ever done like a least favorites video or like books that I did not like, etc. So let me preface this by saying everyone has their own opinion. If you don't agree with me, that is so fine. I love that you don't agree with me. That's fine. I respect your opinions, so respect my opinions. Please and thank you. That's it. So that being said, let's just jump right in. There's way more books than I expected that I wanted to talk about during this video. It makes me nervous. Okay, the first one, okay. The first book that I want to talk about that was extremely disappointing to me was Home Before Dark by Rylee Sager. Here's the thing about this book. So I don't think that it was a trash book. This is one of the books on this list where like I didn't hate this book. However, the plot twists and the final reveal just made me so angry. I hated it. Up until that point, I was enjoying it. But I will say, don't listen to the audiobook for this one. It was terrible. The narrator was a man, and whenever the female's point of view, like our main character who's a female, whenever it was her turn to tell her side of the story, he did this like really high-pitched nasally voice that was obviously a man trying to be a woman, and it just was not tasteful. I didn't like it. I thought it was shrill and annoying. So that probably played a factor into why I didn't like this book so much or my experience reading it, but it was mostly the ending. I hated how Rylee Sager decided to tie this book all up. I really like when a paranormal or spooky story is left for you to imagine, left for you to draw your own conclusions as to what's really happening. And I feel like this is a book that should not have had the perfect bow that it did. If it didn't have the bow that it did, I think that I would have loved it. I think that the ending, had it been different, or the way that I wanted it, it would have been a lot better. Just me, could just be me, I just hated the ending. The next book that I want to talk about, I'm gonna say I'm sorry a lot in this video. It's The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. I know that a lot of people love this book and love this series. I don't. I should have just DNF'd it, but I couldn't because it was for a vlog video that I was doing. It was the Meg Made Me Do It vlog, because this is one of Meg's favorite books, which is fabulous. I love that for her. I just don't love it for me because I had to read it and I didn't like it. So I remember reading like 3/4 of it, and then I remember falling asleep while listening to the audiobook. And then I remember waking up and there was like 10 pages left, and I was like, should I go back and like listen to it again? I just didn't have the energy. I just couldn't do it anymore. So I just finished the last 10 pages and I was like, yep, that's it. Nope, thank you. It just couldn't grab my attention. So this book, it had one thing that I really liked. I really loved like all of the folklore behind the stories and bringing in the fairy tales within like the actual story itself. I thought that was really cool. I did actually really enjoy that part. However, every single other thing else about it, I was just asleep. I just I couldn't care. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just the setting. Like I maybe just don't like the, what is it, like cottagecore? Is that what it is? I don't know. I didn't like it. It just felt a little bit bland. It felt like there was like no high stakes, even though like technically I know there were things that were like pressing and things that I was supposed to feel anxious about, but I just didn't. I just was bored. I'm sorry. I gave this a 2. All right, the next one. I was just extremely disappointed by it. It was The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This coming off of a 5 out of 5 reads from Kingdom of Flesh and 5 out of 5 reads? A 5 out of 5 star read, which was A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, and then going into this one, book 3 in the series, I was vibing. I was feeling good. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be fantastic because I loved the last one so much. That wasn't the case. I think that there were a lot of fundamentally wrong things about this book, mostly just with like the writing, I guess. For example, let me just tell you the one thing that I know I've said before, but in one page in particular, there was a lot of discourse between a few of the characters, and they were using the F word, like saying shit, damn, like all of the things, all of the curse words. And then the very next page, Jennifer L. Armentrout decides to censor the F word, and instead of just coming right out and saying it, she had the main character say, "I don't give a fig." Why on earth? That is just... I literally paused the audiobook and I was like, did I hear that correctly? Because like my ears have been conditioned to like hearing all of these like aggressive words, and then all of a sudden, I don't give a fig. I don't know if she was just trying to be funny, you know, like trying to make our main character try to be a little bit like playful, you know, and like jokey. But I don't think that it didn't work. It just didn't, it wasn't good. And that kind of goes into my other thing about this book that I didn't like, was the humor aspect. I feel like the times that jokes were being said, or like comic relief was trying to be added, it didn't work all the time. It just felt kind of inappropriate to have a joke or a potential comic relief at that time. And it wasn't at times where like dark humor would have been funny, because I'm an ICU nurse. Like, I am the epitome of dark humor. A lot of you would probably think that I am unwell if I told you the things that my coworkers and I laugh at. So that's not the issue here. If there's dark humor, I'm all about it. But it just felt very misplaced. It felt like the joke just like, it didn't belong. There was no point to have it there, and it just ultimately fell flat. I really just think the story was super disjointed and did not flow very well. But of course I did love being with these characters again. Like, I do still like the story, but ultimately it was super disappointing not loving it after coming off of a 5 out of 5 from Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. So I think I gave this like a 3, mostly because I just like the world and I like the story and conflict that we are like going through in this. I think it's interesting. However, the book itself, I had a lot of issues with, so it was disappointing for sure. All right, let's do another DNF, shall we? So another book that I DNF'd this year was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This book, it was kind of similar to how I felt about Bear and the Nightingale in a way. I made it to page, I think, 50 in this story. And it was weird. It was a weird experience because I remember the first like 7 or 10 pages, I remember thinking, oh, this is kind of like, I kind of like this writing. I kind of am enjoying right off the bat of like what the vibes are. But then I also remember like continuing to read it. Like, I put it down after the first like 20 pages or so because I was busy. I had to go do something. And I got back into it like 10 pages later. I remember being like, this isn't making sense. I don't really understand what's happening. Where are we? So I went back and I started again. And I just kept realizing that I was glancing off, looking or thinking about other things. I was very distracted. I couldn't pay attention. And I had the audiobook, I had the physical book. So I was giving myself every potential avenue of liking this book, you know, giving myself every possibility. And I tried quite a few times to, you know, pick this book up again and try to read more. But every time I tried to pick it up, I just kept being more and more like resentful about the fact that like I couldn't pay attention. Like, I could not find it in me to care about what was happening. And it could have just been the timing that I was trying to read it. I don't know. But I was really bummed about this because it was a 5-star prediction for me. And I could not bring myself to pay attention and care about the characters or what was happening. I still couldn't tell you anything about this book or the main character's name or literally anything. And so I DNF'd it. Oh boy. Okay, the next one, y'all are gonna be upset. This is, if any of these books get you riled up, it's gonna be this one. But don't hate me, because let me preface this. This book is still great. I think that I would recommend it to a lot of people. However, it's on this list because it was a very disappointing read for me. I had hyped this book up so much in my head that it just fell flat. So therefore, is it a bad book? Absolutely not. But it fell flat for me, and that book is Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. I'm upset as well. I know, you're mad, I'm mad. I feel it, okay? I think the fact that this book has like one of the prettiest covers I've ever seen in my life, that mixed in with all of the hype surrounding it, like everyone was loving this book, I was like, oh my god, yes, I'm gonna have such a great time reading it. And then that didn't happen. It wasn't a bad read for me, but it wasn't a great read. I gave it a 3 out of 5, which again, isn't a bad rating, but I was expecting it 100% to be a 5-star read. Therefore, when I finish it, I was like, man, it could have done a lot more because my expectations were so high. You know what I'm saying? So if you read the synopsis of this and you think that it sounds amazing, I think that you'll probably like it. But I screwed myself for this book by hyping it up too much in my head. So yeah, I was disappointed. I'm sorry. I hate myself too. All right, the next one was the next DNF of 2021. And that one was Ruthie Fear by Maxim Loskutov. This one, I couldn't tell you anything about this book because it has zero plot. It had nothing that was happening. I wouldn't even be able to tell you the name of the main character if it wasn't in the title of the book, Ruthie Fear. When I tell you that this book kind of makes me angry, I mean that like I actually feel upset about it because this cover is beautiful. I think that it's stunning. And I got it on the vacation in which Caleb proposed to me. So I was like, yes, this is going to be a great experience. I was excited to read it, you know? This one was also a 5-star prediction. I'm bad at that, apparently, because I DNF'd this one as well. But this one, there was zero flow between the chapters, between the characters, or absolutely anything. Or absolutely anything. There was no storyline that I could follow. Oh, and the author's like choice of language that he was using, I just was also uncomfortable with. I thought that it was just aggressive and not needed. So therefore I DNF'd it and I feel good about the decision. The next book that was a pretty big disappointment to me, which I'm super surprised about. I was not expecting this book to be on this list at all. And that book, I know I don't have the dust jacket with me, but it's Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. I know, I'm upset too. It was one of my choices for my book club this year, and there was a lot of us that like didn't love it. And I wasn't expecting that. I was really excited to have this book as a book club pick because I thought that we would all be able to have like a really good discourse about it or like be able to rant and rave about like our favorite parts and whatnot. And that didn't happen. I was just very underwhelmed by this story. I think that the idea behind the story itself and like the potential that it had, amazing. I think that it was super interesting, but the execution of it, I think could have been better. I think, in my opinion, it just could have been longer. Or some things omitted in order for the author to be able to expand on specific storylines or ideas within the plot. Because what this story is about is really quite cool. It's a really interesting sounding sci-fi story. And I just wanted more detail. I just wanted more information on how things were happening, why things were happening. And I also just thought that the characters could have been written a little bit more vibrantly, I guess. I don't know if that really makes sense, but I feel like the characters were just a little flat to me. Maybe not all of them, but like I definitely wasn't pulled in by many people. Therefore, I didn't care about a whole lot of the people. I didn't think that this book was bad, but I think I did give it like a 2.5 or 3 out of 5, which again isn't terrible, but I was disappointed. I thought it was gonna be like a 4 or 5 star read. The next one will be kind of quick because I don't have many thoughts on it, but it was The Steel Prince by V.E. Schwab. It was like the volume 1 of Shades of Magic graphic novel, basically. And we were following King Maresh before the original trilogy took place. And I just honestly, I thought that this graphic novel was extremely confusing. And I had a very hard time following. I don't know if that's just me because I'm not like a graphic novel savant or anything, but normally I can follow them at least. And I had a very hard time following this story. I didn't know who we were following or like what exactly the point of the story was or what the conflict, like anything. I didn't understand it. And the art style itself also was just not my favorite in graphic novels. I think that I like a more animated or like illustrated, I think would be the right word. And that's not to say that it's not good artwork because I am by no means saying that. It's just not my favorite style, I guess is what I'm saying. And especially like all of the different fonts of the words or like the exclamations that are happening. I just like consistency, I think. Like for example, one of my favorite graphic novels this year was On a Sunbeam, and this graphic novel is absolutely stunning. Like I love all these colors and the artwork itself is just some of my favorites. But the primary thing behind not liking the story was I just couldn't follow it. I didn't know what was happening. So I think I gave it like a 1 or a 2, I don't remember. Okay, the last one that I want to talk about I think will be a little controversial as well, and I can't even hold it up because I sold it. I had the Illumicrate special edition of this book and I was super excited because it was literally like the most beautiful book I think I've ever seen. But I did not like it, and therefore I sold it to someone who really did want it, and it hurt to let that beautiful book go, but I hope that the person I sent it to is loving it more than I was. And that book is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I DNF'd it. I could not finish this book. It was upsetting for me as well. So my issue with this book is really just, I think, a personal problem. When I was reading this, I kept thinking about The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. The Poppy War trilogy is by far one of my favorite series of all times. It is masterfully crafted and absolutely stunning. And She Who Became the Sun seems like a companion novel to it or something. It seemed very similar to me. So when I was reading She Who Became the Sun, I would start thinking about the Poppy War, and I would start realizing that there was this huge disconnect for me, because when I was thinking about the Poppy War, I kept wishing that I was reading the Poppy War instead of She Who Became the Sun, because Poppy War is so superior in my opinion. And I could not get past that feeling. I couldn't get past I wish I was reading the Poppy War instead of this book. I couldn't get past it. And therefore it was making the reading experience really terrible. I just was not loving my time reading it. And so I ended up DNFing it. I couldn't get past it, and I hope whoever has my book now is loving it. The last book that I want to mention, it was a soft DNF. It was a DNF. And it was Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. This book I was reading for Rachel Made Me Do It, one of my reading vlogs. And what happened with this book was I started reading it around like 1 a.m. because when I was on night shift, I would start books randomly at random times. I read about 125 pages of it straight and was extremely bored. I think that my major issue with this is one of the main characters, or like our main narrator, is a teenager, and some of the dialogue or the inner dialogue, whatever it is that's going on, is very, very YA, which is totally fine. But the way that our main character was talking or having that inner dialogue, it was just like too YA for me. I just had this big disconnect of not being able to relate or appreciate our main character's thought process, I guess. Now this book, however, I did care enough about the story to want to know how it ended, but I 100% didn't want to sit through the rest of the pages. So I ended up just Googling a summary and reading the rest of the story through a Cliff Note version. So it was a soft DNF because I still know what happens, but I DNF'd the main book, which means I did not finish the whole story, if that makes sense at all. Whew. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, I think that's all the books that I want to talk about. I tried to be kind. I don't like conflict. However, I do want to know what your least favorite reads were. So let me know down below your least favorite read of 2021, because let's start some drama. And let me know if you agree with me on any of mine, because I would love to feel validated. While you're down there, drop the X emoji, the no thank you, this was not it emoji. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. And of course, be kind to one another and happy reading. Bye.